Hello and welcome. My name is Ana Elena González Treviño from UNAM UK Center for Mexican Studies. One of our missions is the promotion of Mexican culture, and on this occasion we are delighted to present Adriana Diaz Enciso's new book, Flint. Let me tell you a little bit about Adriana. Adriana Diaz Enciso is an author of poetry and fiction, as well as a translator. Born in Mexico, she's been living in London since 1999. She has published several books of poetry, short stories, and novels, the most recent one being Ciudad Doliente de Dios, Doleful City of God, inspired by William Blake's prophetic poems and published by Alfaguara and co-edited with UNAM. She wrote many lyrics for Mexican cult rock band Santa Sabina, and she has also written for the stage. She has recently finished translating into Spanish George Eliot's The Lifted Veil, and she is working on a new novel and on the translation of a selection from the work of British poet David Harsent. Adriana, we are very, very happy to welcome you to the Center for Mexican Studies, and tell us about your new work, Flint.
Hello, Ana Elena. Thank you very much, and thank you for the UNAM UK. Thank you everybody for being here. And yes, I will talk a bit about this, my latest book or pamphlet. It's a very short one, and I'll tell you what it's about. On the 4th of March last year, traveling in the tube on the Northern Line, I picked up for some reason a copy of the Metro. That's where I read the news of the passing of Keith Flint, frontman of the electronic dance music band The Prodigy. I wasn't a Prodigy fan, though I knew of them. I didn't know Keith Flint's name either until I read the news of his death. In fact, I have to confess that when I watched The Prodigy's Breathe video back in the 90s, I found Flint quite scary. That night I had a very vivid dream, strange and intense. I dreamt I was accompanying Keith Flint to die. The dream stayed with me the following day, and in fact for the whole of March. It also unleashed a series of other dreams of people I had lost in my life. It was the kind of thing that is asking something from you, and that's how and why I started writing this piece. After the dream, I started to look up information about the stranger who had appeared in my dreams with such force on the night following his death. I was struck and deeply moved by how all those who knew him remembered him as a kind and generous man, in utter contrast with the menacing air of his public persona. This is probably the strangest thing I've written in my life, and that's saying much. It's also one of the most urgent and sincere. Though I spent the whole of March 2019 dreaming of and writing about death and the death, there was really nothing there that was a nightmare. Rather the opposite. It was the beginning of spring. And for the whole month I felt as if suspended in a dream myself, enthralled by the beauty of springtime, fully awake to the preciousness of life. This and a profound feeling of compassion animated the writing of this piece. On the 1st of April that year, nearly a month after this journey started, I finished what I thought was a first draft. In the afternoon, friends in Mexico contacted me to let me know that a very dear friend of mine, Armando Vega Gil, had taken his own life the same way that Keith Flint did. For several weeks, I was paralyzed by grief, by horror, and stopped working on this text, feeling that the coincidence was sinister and rather awful. However, I knew in my heart that there was nothing sinister in what I had been occupying myself in for the whole of March. What had moved me to write it was sad, which is different, but it was beauty, the honoring of life, and an openness of heart what had been the driving force of my writing. I felt that I owed it to myself, to Keith Flint, and now also to my friend Armando to finish this piece, which is, I think, an offering of beauty, compassion, and hope in the face of death and suicide. I therefore added another part near the end in which my friend enters the text universe, left the rest as it was, and dedicate the whole thing to both Keith and Armando. The title of the piece is Flint because one of the definitions of Flint is fire starter. And as every Prodigy fan knows, Firestarter is one of the Prodigy's greatest hits, immortalized in its official video, which is a rather apt self-portrait of Keith Flint. This pamphlet made the rounds with some publishers, but nothing came of it. Another independent publisher had promised to read it when the COVID pandemic hit the UK. I was sent by my GP into lockdown on the 13th of March, a bit earlier than most people, being in the shielding category. The beginning of lockdown, as I'm sure all of you know, was an extraordinarily intense period, mentally, emotionally, and it was defined with glorious eloquence by the return of spring after a rather long winter. Suddenly I thought that there was no point in waiting to see whether if anyone wanted to publish this piece or not. The future was most evidently uncertain. Everything seemed to have lost focus, to fall off its structures, and to be quite frank, I thought that since none of us knew whether if we were going to survive this thing, there was no point in keeping our unpublished books in the drawer. I was once again carried away by the beauty of spring, and it started to seem to me very important that this book went out into the world in springtime, with the same urgency as it had been written in springtime a year ago. It felt to me that publishing it was the only offering of hope I could do to the world in such a moment. That's how I ventured into self-publishing for the first time in my life. That meant designing the book and cover myself. I have never touched the InDesign program before, and you probably can tell. Technology is definitely not my thing, and there were moments, both during its design and the ordeal of setting up my WordPress website for selling it, when I thought I'd have to give up. But I didn't. It felt important, and when not on the verge of tears of frustration induced by digital reality, I really enjoyed designing it and creating that cover, which is my visual way of joining a song to springtime with an elegy to Keith Flint. Prodigy's fans will probably know why I say this. I decided also that a third of whatever proceeds the ebook made should go to the National Suicide Prevention Alliance and another third to the NHS, a humble but heartfelt contribution to collective efforts to save lives. In the afterword in the book, I tell how it came about in more detail. If you feel you'd like to read it, you can see in the screen information of where you can get it in my website, which is diazenciso.com. And now I'm going to read some excerpts of the book. But first, I really want to thank Ana-Elena González-Treviño and UNAM UK for organizing this presentation, and Eulalia Gursa González for her technical assistance. So I will read some excerpts, starting from the first part, which is dedicated to the dream itself. Did you come to my dreams that night seeking a stranger's comfort? Did I, in dreaming, seek you out to stretch a hand? Say with the language of one common heart how sorry I was a life had come to end like this? And how did I reach out in sleep's twilight on that first night of your disowning? Was it your soul that tore the veil in random striving to be washed up in shores of some stray care? I used to fear you. That house of nightmares, no doors, the windows boarded over with opaque mesh that looks like vets for warning. Nothing out there, no world to go back to, no other path than a ceaseless loop of the soul's suffocation, forever round and round, sprouting dirty water, the peeling walls, the morbid dereliction, the sinister soothsayer with smooth painted skin, the alligator smiling its knowing embracing of the dark. And you, imp, infernal dervish, entrancing your dance of rage, though polished raw, a beckoning, a menace, tangled in a phantom web woven by you, banging your head against that gap in the smashed wall, then taking flight, a swirl of abandon, deliverance, but where to? Through that passage we walk, void and dense, me leaving you like a reversal fails but afraid to look back, walk back with you all the way to there, where we've chosen to go. Where we were now I cannot say. There was no light nor darkness, no discernible walls, nor doors or windows. If we were enclosed, and we were, it was by shadows, thick like volcanic ash. Words are not the means to tell of that place's utter loneliness. Was it a bed you lay upon? It was so hard to see. You were passing, a drawn, mute stretch of no time impregnated with the suffering stuckness of your face. As if you didn't stop saying words that weren't audible, didn't stop suffering, didn't stop dying. A flurry of sorrow that might have been fear, but mostly desolation, as you lay clasped by that unsettling twilight, that dimness made of absence of light or shades. I held your hand and also voiceless talked to you. Can't remember the substance of this talking, but I know I was not afraid or shaken. Everything I was in that no place and timelessness was a tranquil pool of care, compassion unobstructed, shining with piercing glint. Because you were a stranger, because nothing held me to you, and nothing held me there but the will to walk with you as you enter the unknown land. Dance, swirl, whirlwind, don your primeval mask, celebration, pandemonium, immolation. This, too, means to be human. A serious tongue-in-cheek, drenching sweat, raving, spitting, swearing amidst a needed lightning storm disjointing time. Charged wild animal and fluorescent, berserk, frightened raptured centaur of a fallen age. Go there now, rush the valley crammed with faithless souls dying of thirst. Teaser, agitator, Neptune of the human swell, squall and wheel of fire, clown, anarchic, fury son, lawless high priest swathed in ravaged skin, unholy trinity, the exorcist, the demon, the possessed, Blake's orc, freedom fighter shackled by your savored pain, Prometheus, who stole the flame to bring the children fun. How do we give hope to the dead? Look again. It's springtime, I say. Still cold. The wind blows wild, but the magnolia stands on the terrace. Every day it grows a vaster promise. Dark its fleshy petals, almost purple, flesh incendiary and soft. It is oblivious to the ruminations in your obdurate head. This tree. It unfolds, it endures, it blooms quietly, and that's the thrust of its defiance. Beauty, beauty, I want you to see. There you go, tornado, scarecrow, darting to and fro, the quarry. You go, the hunters do you, wrath incarnate, punching the air, kicking, gone up in flames and leaping, rhapsodic where you burn. Crucible of peril, theater perfected to a fault. Wielding communion steel, you run and trance amidst the frenzied throng, lord of misrule, touching them, grimacing, an unheard manic dialogue gushing from your mouth. Hunting, hugging those who cannot stand. We've lost our gods, and all we have left is us, but we still run amok. I watch in fascination. What does it mean? Are all these broken children? Are they being mended, cured? A dangerous liturgy, dangerous game. This is how we speak in tongues. As for you, like all the ecstatic, not an inch of your body left unmarked, you seem to have walked the tightrope in daring and innocence at once. A dangerous artist, he who holds in bare hands the many-edged flower. And thus you are offered up, self-inflicted, screaming flesh, eyes flaring, transfigured, not caring if you're devil or clown. You're delivered to those mutinous souls, a whole nation, it seems, beside itself and at your feet. To stir them into a frenzy, you said, was the point of ignition, and you hold the flame. No one dare curb your rage, its grand defiance. As nailed humanity in its thousands, they sway as one, a fearsome tide, up and down and round in circles. Their breath hovers above them, pierced by a common firebolt, and down go the barriers. You plunge into beneath, drunk with lawlessness. You are the body of peril, struck by lightning. You offer your chest, stab at your chest. You talk to them, command them. What do you say? A curse? A prayer? Again you run towards them, grab their hands, stare and swill, harlequin swept away in your own visions, hot air coming out as wisps of mist as you breathe in the red square. Pure genius in the abandoned train tunnel, madness scrupulously choreographed, untamed and refined, this your jest of menace. How you tease us, imp, Pied Piper, perilous and pure. We watch, we lure, we follow, and in the likeness of rage and farce and dislocation, your exultation conquers. We're in your game. How free you run into the tunnel, equivocal. How free, how free. A month later, almost to the day, and the stream I followed on the trail of dreams is stopped and cracked. You've just been laid to rest. The path signals for you with fire in the sky. Across the ocean, macabre mirror dance, another man takes the same leap. Above my head the glass shatters, the mirror and the sky. The clash is made of silence. Death, broken, gone. Thus he followed, ensnared in the small hours, alone and dearest friend. I stop these words. I'm scared, you see. It's dark, it's unendurable, that final dance, it's flare like mockery. If a lesson, imparted by whom, and why, and what's the moral? Can't touch these pages. I stay away, I am away, transfixed, day after day, staring blankly into space. All this talking to a stranger, someone who's here no more, invoking life, and him just about to go, without our knowing, no one near to stop him, and why wasn't I breathing runes of beauty into his ear, scooping these words like ore from living veins to drop into his hands, all the while living, when he at least was still the side of hope. Can't find any life, no meaning, just death, obtuse, its random pirouettes. Or did you have something to tell him? Then I've been too slow as scribe. It's much too late now. He was much loved, and he's no more. He's left an orphan son. The absence of the dead, it's solid, a presence in fact. The wind blows outside my window, a murmur, loud. The blinds are down, but the trees stare in my mind, their pensive dance in darkness. Everything is peace and hallowed. These are the flowers I leave outside your house, where spring is slowly blooming, knocking gently at your window pane. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adriana. What a very moving text, and what a story of composition. There's so many things that suggest themselves after listening to you. And one of them is the way you have fallen in love with the English language, I might say, as an artistic choice, and how you use it to depict the violence of nature and yet the gentleness of nature as well through the cycles of the seasons. Do you have, is there a reason you could tell why you chose the English language for this particular piece?
Well, I've been living in the UK for the past 21 years, so I'm afraid that most of what I start writing now, I start writing it in English because that's the language in which I think now most of the time. It's actually the language in which I dream, which is very strange. And I still keep on writing in Spanish, and sometimes I really panic. Am I losing Spanish, or what the hell is going on? But things sort of come in English, and if they start coming in English, I let them. And here, I didn't even wonder what was correct language, because after all, I was talking to a British man, even though he wasn't here anymore. And but to me, writing in English is a bit like writing in another genre. And if I write poetry, short stories, novel, well, I write in English is like another thread of my literary voice. But I do worry about losing Spanish. So the novel I've just started writing now, my idea, I hope I'll manage, is to write it simultaneously in English and in Spanish, because I started it in English, and that scared me.
Adriana, I was wondering about the format of the ebook, because there is a tendency to value the printed version more than the electronic version. I am a book lover myself, but still I think that the ebook has its own charm, and there are other possibilities that may be exploited. So what are your views on this?
Well, you know me. I am very old-fashioned, and I don't have a good relationship with internet. I use it because I have to. And as I explained at the beginning, I made this as an ebook because it hadn't found a publisher yet. And when the pandemic struck, I really felt I want this book out in spring. It had this kind of emotional meaning to me that it came out into the world in spring, because it had been written in springtime, and we were in a very difficult moment as a humanity, and it was the only way I could offer something like hope in springtime. But I want to see it printed, if at all possible, because I myself find it very difficult to read ebooks. That's the truth. I found it very, very difficult to read on the screen. So my idea was, well, this will be a first step towards the having the book outside in the world. It will be a first step. I hope there will be a second one. I just felt I really wanted it out in springtime, and also because I wanted to raise funds for the National Suicide Prevention Alliance and for the NHS, because I felt, well, I was a bit shielding, so I couldn't do anything for anybody, and I felt I wanted to give something, and this was what I had to give. But if things had been ideal, to me it would have been a normal book. But you know, I'm old-fashioned.
But what about these wonderful images that you've been showing us as well? Because you made those, right?
Yes, yes. Well, those are images of spring. One of spring last year, and the others are, I mean, my GP allows me to go to the park, nowhere else but to the park. So there are images of springtime during lockdown, at the beginning of lockdown. And one of them is actually the tree that I used for the cover of the ebook. So yes, it's images of spring.
Can they go somewhere as illustrations to the book beyond the cover, do you think? Do you have room for, is there room for them or?
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't thought of that. Well, that would be for my future publisher, who I hope is listening, whoever that may be, to make a decision.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Adriana, can you tell us where people can find your book, Flint?
Yes, it can be found in my website, which is diazenciso.com. It's a WordPress website. And you will find the link a bit later on in this talk, where you can click in the actual place in my blog where it is. Also, on the top of my website, there is one space dedicated to this book, which is Flint, Elegy, and Book of Dreams, or directly in the shop of my website.
Excellent. Well, I really recommend people read this book. It's really a journey into the depths of the soul and a very, very compassionate treatment of a very difficult topic. So thank you, Adriana, for giving this book to the world, which is very, very brave as well, dealing with a difficult topic and with so much compassion, so much generosity, that it does indeed fulfill its purpose of giving hope. Thank you. Thank you very much, Adriana.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you. And we look forward to seeing you again. And goodbye for now.
Bye. Bye. Bye.